we read the story in the Gospel of John, but I want to just do something a little bit right now. And I want us to think about from Jesus' perspective as to what took place. Because how many of you guys know that all of us in this room go through real things? How many of us in this place are maybe even walking through a hard season right now? And there's something really important about just taking a moment and just understanding that we're going through something really hard. And I want us to think about this morning from the perspective of Jesus, what he actually endured. And so I'm going to read several statements this morning, and I want to share them from the perspective of Jesus. And so let's think about this. As I share this, I want you to be a little more reflective as we think about this moment. Number one is this: it was the most painful death ever invented by man. And that's where we get our term excruciating. When we think about the crucifixion, that's where we get the term excruciating pain. It was reserved primarily for the most vicious male of criminals. It was a horrific, slow, and painful death. Jesus was stripped naked and his clothing was divided by the Roman guards. Jesus' knees were flexed at about 45 degrees, and he was forced to bear the weight with the muscles of his thighs, which is not an anatomical position which is possible to maintain for more than just a few minutes without severe cramping in the muscles in the thigh and the calves. Jesus' weight was borne on his feet, which with nails driven through them. As the strength of the muscles of Jesus' lower limbs tired, the weight of his body had to be transferred to his wrist, his arms, and his shoulders. And within a few minutes of being placed on the cross, Jesus' shoulders were dislocated. Minutes later, Jesus' elbows and wrists became dislocated. In the fulfillment of the prophecy in Psalm 22:14, I'm poured out like water and all my bones are out of joint. In order to breathe out, Jesus had to push up on the nails on his feet and to raise his body and allow his rib cage to move downwards and inwards to expire the air from his lungs. The process of respiration caused excruciating pain mixed with the absolute terror of asphyxiation. As the 6 hours of the crucifixion wore on, Jesus was less and less able to bear his weight on his legs as his thigh and calf muscles become increasingly exhausted. The movements became less frequent as Jesus became increasingly exhausted, but the terror of imminent death by asphyxiation forced him to continue his efforts to breathe. Jesus was covered with blood and sweat. The blood was a result of scourging that nearly killed him, and the sweat was a result of violent, involuntary attempts to expire air from his lungs. Jesus had drunk nothing for about 15 hours since 6 p.m. in the previous evening. By about noon, Jesus' heart probably began to fail. Jesus said, "I thirst," because his body was crying out for fluids. When the Romans wanted to expedite the death, they would simply break the legs of the victim, causing the victim to suffocate in a matter of minutes. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Jesus said, "It is finished." At that moment, he gave up his spirit and he died. And when the soldiers came to Jesus to break his legs, he was already dead. Not one of his bones was broken, and again, in the fulfillment of prophecy. Thank you for just leaning in for a moment to really think about this moment for us and to think about this moment for Jesus. And I would say this, church, if we ever doubt the love of God, let's think about the cross. Like if we ever doubt the love of God for us, let's just take a moment and think about what Jesus endured for us on the cross. Let's allow our hearts to go there. Let's allow our hearts to realize that, yes, Jesus died on the cross, but let's realize that there was a man 2,000 years ago that literally gave up his life for you and for me, and what he endured on the cross was pretty extreme. And I want us just to allow our minds to go there, and if you ever doubt the love of God, church, think about the cross.